Joining me for the second half of Flight 81 of the Squawk Ident podcast is an exceptional aviator and co-host. He's an award-winning trophy-hoisting tennis champion, a professional CFI, II, and MEI flight instructor, former freight dog, former airline pilot, a current King Air instructor, a Falcon 2000 commander, a captain, and a corporate operator as well. He joins us from the Gulf capital of the world, from his layover in Pinehurst, North Carolina, home of the Pinehurst number 2 course. The Pinehurst number 2. They couldn't have come up with a better name. I don't know. It totes the most gold. Hold on.
Gold?
Gold. It auto-corrected to gold. A course that totes the most golf championships in America. From his mobile studios from the second floor of the Marriott Hotel in Pinehurst, please help me in welcoming our amazing co-host to the show, Captain Roger. Captain, how you doing?
Doing all right, Tony. How are you? I'm still kind of laughing at your, I guess my intro there. I'm sure you're going to edit part of that out, but it was like a 5-minute intro. I'm an award-winning championship. I'm an award-winning tennis player.
That's your same intro, man.
And then maybe I just haven't been paying attention before. And then we've got Pinehurst number 2, which I'm guessing you have no idea what that is.
Well, it's a golf course, I guess. It's a golf championships around the... I don't know.
That's my case. The whole thing is just pretty funny.
Well, then school me, son.
Well, Pinehurst number 2 is just it's a very famous course. It's held a number of U.S. Opens, both men's and women's, and I have discovered, I've never really thought about it, I discovered it costs like my yearly salary to play this course a couple times, but so I will not be joining the... You won't
be participating in the
round? Actually, that's what we are out here for, is that the passengers I flew out are apparently playing. It's there's I think 9 of them, I believe, all designed by the same guy back in the early 1900s. And there's number 1 to, through, I think it's 9. But number 2 is the most famous one of all of them.
And what's the reasoning behind it being the most famous? Is it just a better course, or?
That I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a golf aficionado at all, actually. But just the design and, there's some very famous ones. You actually mentioned one before, Pebble Beach being one of them, out closer to where we are.
Yeah.
But just the layout, the scenery. I don't know. You'd need to talk to the golf guys in order to find out exactly what.
Well, as you're sitting here making fun of my lack of knowledge about golf, I took the liberty of taking a quick look. So the number 2 golf course, as you mentioned, they're the Pinehurst since 1895. They've numbered their courses. This is Donald Ross's masterpiece, according to their website.
We don't know what makes it a masterpiece. I'm not entirely... That I couldn't tell you.
Okay, now that my tablet is unfrozen. From Pinehurst.com, the centerpiece of Pinehurst Resort, it has served as the site of more single golf championships than any other course in America, and hosted back-to-back U.S. Opens and U.S. Women's Open championships for the first time in 2014. As the first U.S. Open anchor site, the championship will return to Pinehurst in the years 2024, 2029, 2035, 2041, and 2047. So I guess like every, 6 years?
Apparently they scheduled those things pretty far out.
Yeah.
If we know that we're playing in 2047.
Yeah, it's a pretty good-looking course, and I understand that these golf courses, millions go into keeping them,
I'm sure,
meticulously maintained, and the design and the natural landscape is always a consideration when these architects of these golf courses get together. It's definitely a rich man's sport, and yeah, not something I've, other than hitting a bucket of balls, not something I've ever had the liberty to participate in.
We'll need to get you out sometime. We'll go play more of the $30 round of golf, though.
Only if I can dress up like, hey,
Stewart.
No. What's the name of that comedian, Jack?
You're talking about Rodney Dangerfield.
Thank you.
But
yeah, only if I could dress up like Rodney Dangerfield will I go hit around.
Ain't nothing stopping you.
Hey, I get no respect. Take my wife, please. Hey. Well, yeah, this course was, the design by Donald Ross is mentioned in 1907, redesigned and restored by R.T. Jones in 1974, and again in 2010 by Bill Core and Ben Crenshaw. Man, I'm learning something new every minute of the day. This is awesome.
Well, that's why we have our Squawk Ident podcast, is so that we can talk about aviation and so many other things, like golf.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever going to be a true pilot and someday command a heavy aircraft across the Atlantic, you're going to have to know how to hit around the balls.
Moving on.
Well, I got to say, I'm a little tired. And we're going to talk about why. The first half of this show, I was very fortunate to be able to have an opportunity to record with Rob, and we talked about it a little bit at the onset of the show, is because I had a cancellation. I had an Austin turn that canceled, and as per our contract, if you have a sit for more than 5 hours due to a cancellation, wherever you are, in base at the airport or out and out station, you are then offered what they call a day room, which is a hotel room that they'll book you a room so that you can go and put your feet up and relax a little bit. Because, as we've mentioned many times before here in the last couple of years of recording this podcast, the sit times between flights are one of the most fatiguing times because you really don't have a place where you can get peace and quiet. Yeah, some bases have what they call ready rooms or sleep rooms or quiet rooms, but it's not the same. You don't get to take your uniform off and put your feet up and maybe even take a shower and get refreshed, take a nap, whatever. So they know this. So in an effort to keep you well rested, they'll give you a day room, and that's what happened to me. Well, that's where the adventure kind of really began. I was able to go to the Hyatt Place in DFW and get the first half of this recording done, and then time was getting a little tight, so we decided to save the second half for the next day. Well, the adventure continued as I went back to the airport around 6 o'clock in the evening. We're getting ready to kick off and go to Austin for the layover. We were delayed due to maintenance, and there was weather around northern Texas, and that didn't help the situation with other flights being canceled and delayed as well. So we ended up leaving about 3 hours behind schedule. Well, I came up against what is called a flight time duty time, an FAR 117 regulation that states that all pilots are limited every single day, that from the beginning of their duty period to the end of their duty period, by two factors primarily. The first factor is flight time. Depending on what time you started, home base time, you might be limited to 8 hours or 9 hours of flight time or less. And the second factor is flight time duty time. What that is, well, if you started at 6 in the morning, you can't go 24 hours without, getting your appropriate rest. So for me, it was a 14-hour limit. And what we do is we calculate backwards from your landing, when your calculated flight time was whenever you were going to land, work it backwards, and you can figure out the maximum off time, the MOT. And I was getting really close to the MOT with this new delay. So I, spoke with the captain and the crew, and I said, hey, guys, just so you know, I'm getting really close to going illegal. So, probably the faster we get out of here, the better, so that we don't have an issue. Now, you can extend, and Roger, I know that every pilot has their opinion on flight time extensions. What you're extending is not your flight time, but you're extending your duty time. You're saying, well, I'm good to go for an additional up to 2 hours to bring my day from a 14-hour duty day to a 16-hour duty day in most cases. And I was falling under that category. Now, I have a rule. Usually I try not to extend, because 9 out of 10 I'm not the only one that has to extend. We have a conversation with the crew and find out with the captain. Going, okay, are you willing to go? Are you okay to go? More willing to continue if the need be. Well, we got to the point where I was legal by 15 minutes, meaning we had to push off the gate, use up the allotted taxi time that the flight plan had, and we had to be in the air, wheels up in the air, or starting our takeoff rolls, I think the definition there. So in the air by a certain time, and I was within 15 minutes of that time. Well, of course, they overfueled the airplane because it was coming from the maintenance hangar from a previous flight, and it had 10,000 pounds of fuel too much. So they had to defuel the aircraft. That takes quite some time. Long story short, by the time we were all done, set, and ready to go, our new delayed departure time put me over my flight duty time by 1 minute. So as we were getting ready to go, I had talked to the captain. I said, listen, I'm going to go ahead and extend because we're boarded up. This is like the last flight. Everything else has been canceled. I feel good because I went to a hotel and rested. I had some time to record a podcast and everything. I mean, I feel great. So I'm willing to extend because, and I look back and see a full flight, completely booked, and everyone's ready to go, and they've been sitting around for 3 hours. So I was like, okay, I'm making the decision. I'll extend. So my phone rang, and we were literally a minute from closing the door and me turning off my phone. But I knew a call was going to come through, so I had left it on until we were absolutely certain we were leaving. And the crew schedulers are really nice when they ask you to extend. First Officer Charvella, we were wondering, we see you're over by your duty time by a minute. Are you willing to extend so we can get this flight out? Versus how they normally talk to you. And yeah, it was. I was like, well, yeah, we're shutting the door here in the next 5 minutes. I'm well rested. I'm willing to extend. That's fine. Well, how long are you willing to extend? And I was like, really? I thought you just extend me 2 hours. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to be in the air in like 15 minutes. I'll extend 1 hour. After that, if we're not in the air, then I'll call it. So I kind of like split the difference. And I'm like, okay. And sure enough, we pushed off the gate, got in the air, got into Austin. Well, of course, that made us illegal for our return flight. We only were going to get like 7 hours of rest, which is way below the minimum of 10 hours. So they adjusted our departure time. They delayed the flight in the morning by almost 3 hours so that we could be legal, the flight crew could be legal. And we were flying in and out with the same flight attendants. So it was easy. Well, when I woke up in the morning and I checked my phone, the app that we have for our schedules, that flight was canceled. And so we have you going on a flight at noon. You're going to fly to Dallas and then deadhead back to Ontario. And then that flight canceled. And so everything started canceling, and I'm thinking, oh boy. Well, long story short, I ended up deadheading out of Austin around 3 p.m. and landing in Los Angeles around the same time, a little after 3. And then I had to ground transportation to Ontario. And then there was a snafu with the ground transportation. So I waited on the curb for quite a long time, and really there are no other options. It's not like you can go, well, I'm taking a cab. I mean, it's a 70-mile drive, just about, in rush hour traffic. So I had to juggle some things and make some phone calls, but finally got on the ride. I didn't get home in the front door until about 7 p.m. A very, very tiring and long day. But hey, that is part of the adventure of being an airline pilot, flying a schedule with what they call IROPs or Irregular Operations. Sometimes you get stuck. And I actually got lucky that I didn't get stuck in Texas into my day off. Because this morning I was supposed to report for jury duty. And when I called late last evening to find out what time I needed to report, they had canceled my jury summons. So here we are, recording a couple days later on June 8th, 2021, joined by our very own in-house CFI, Captain Roger. Now, Roger, you haven't been on the show since episode 77 back in May 6th. You've had a very busy flight schedule and a lot going on. And I just want to say thank you for being here again today.
Absolutely.
What have you been up to, man?
Well, it's kind of been a combination of just the flying and the work schedule, plus some personal stuff with the end of the school year, both the kids and Tracy wrapping up school. So I've and having been gone a lot before that, I've been taking more time at home and being more cautious, spending time outside of spending time with them, I guess. And so that's taken some time and making sure everybody got school finished up, in addition to some flying, which has been a little lighter for me, admittedly, the last month, simply because of the amount that I was doing before. And then just this past Sunday, 3 days ago now, I'm pretty much not going to be home for the entire month of June. So I think that was recognized. And so I kind of got a little bit of the longer end of the stick for May, but I also chose to spend more time with my family during that time as well.
Good man. You're making us all look bad, man. Good man.
Well, I don't know about that. It's always a give and take. And then, like I say, I pretty much took off Sunday, and then they're going to be on their own this entire month now.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You and I both have had some pretty crazy schedules. And I think it's very apparent for anyone that's been flying in the past few weeks that the airports are full. I mean, we've been saying this for a long time, but what's frustrating is, okay, so we're prepared. We're ready for full airports. It feels nice to be back to normal, to see this happening, and you're flying quite a bit, which is good. It means that, the business side of America is getting back to where they need to with meetings and whatever else these, corporate execs need to do. But the frustrating part is it's a 30 to 45 minute wait no matter what international airport you're at, because they can't find employees to do all the service jobs. They're offering, I heard this last couple days, they're offering $20 for an entry-level position at some of these places, $20 an hour, because they can't bring in people on a minimum wage scale. And I also heard through the grapevine that at Legacy Airlines, some of the employees that work in corporate structure, most of them are telecommuting. About 80% of what they do is from home, and then they come in, once or twice a week into the office. Well, they're telecommuting, and they've all been given notices that, hey, if you come help us out at the airport, we'll give you a little extra, bonus for helping us out, because we have a high demand for some of these entry-level positions that are not being fulfilled. They're hiring our corporate employees to come into the airport and push wheelchair passengers around, because we can't find any of the wheelchair passenger assistance.
It's pretty amazing the labor whiplash that this country has been through the past 18 months, on how everything was humming along, and then the pandemic hit, and it hit a brick wall, and people were losing jobs by the millions, specifically, like you're just saying, in the service industry. And now, I just drive around almost any town, because, obviously you and I, we see a fair amount of them. Pick a town, and if you're driving around, and you'll see signs in storefront windows, hiring, help wanted. I'm actually just right now, I'm in like this hotel circle, and there's 3 hotels, and there's a sign for all 3 hotels, help wanted, as you drive into the driveway for all 3 of these hotels. There's two Hiltons and 1 Marriott, and they're on the same sign, help wanted. So where are all these people that lost their jobs during the pandemic, and why are we not hiring these people back? What happened?
Well, if my unemployment check is higher than or relatively close or survivable, and I can survive on an unemployment check, and I don't have to pay my rent because I have a protection clause that I just pay partial whatever.
And they can't kick me out anyway.
and my kids are home, and to be fair, if my kids are home from school because they're doing online schooling or what have you, and now summer's starting, so now it's even harder because now it's like, well, the kids are home, I want to take a vacation, all this kind of good stuff. I can't work because who's going to watch the kids? That costs money for daycare, and plus COVID and everything we're still not out of the woods. I mean, we're still not 100% open around the country, although some states like Florida and parts of Texas are absolutely open and no masks anywhere, and yet no outbreak. Wow, amazing. But that aside, yeah, why would I? Why would I go and have to get a job making what I was making before, struggling so much where life is good, right? The system needs to change, but we're not here to talk about that. It's frustrating. I did a few social media posts for the Squawk Ident Instagram page about coffee. I mean, most of us pilots drink coffee. Roger's not quite there yet.
Exception to the rule.
He's not quite there yet, but maybe in a couple of decades he'll change his mind. But as he gets older, but yeah, Texas, DFW, 8 concourse, Starbucks are closed, and they all have signs that say the Starbucks. Usually, it's like further down in the concourse. So I passed 1, passed 2, passed 3. I was like, geez, where's the next Starbucks? Oh, it's over at Seagates, Charlie, whatever. So I take the train, I go to Seagates, and then I get off there at the low Seagates, like Charlie 5, and I keep walking, and that one's closed, and that one's closed, and I go to the one that they said was open over at Charlie 25, and there's a sign out that says, sorry, this Starbucks location is closed, you need to go to Alpha 15. I'm like, wait a minute, that's where I started, they're closed too. So you sit there frustrated. So I ended up at 7-Eleven. Thank heaven for 7-Eleven.
So again, the Squawk Ident podcast, where you can find all things aviation, golf, labor market related. Although I did just want to question you on one thing here. So on this Starbucks journey that you had, so you started out at what, A15 or something?
Yeah.
For your Starbucks, and then you went to where?
So I walked, it's like a horseshoe. Each concourse is like a horseshoe. So, I walked the half circle, and every time, usually every 5 to 6 gates, there is a Starbucks location, but they were all closed.
So then you ended up having to go to the C concourse?
Well, I ended up having to go there anyway because I came in. So
you were searching multiple concourses just for Starbucks?
Well, it was on the way to my gate. To be fair,
the A's and the C's were on their way to the gate.
Yeah, because I came in at A. I came in and parked at A5, I think, or something like that, and I was going out of Charlie 25. So either way, normally I'd hop on the train, go directly to Charlie 25, and there's a Starbucks right there. And so I'd get out, I grab a cup of coffee, I go onto the airplane, I do my pre-flight, I take a couple sips, and I get the juices going, and here we go. But instead of taking the train right away, I walked the length of the A concourse, thinking, I'll pick one up on the way. That way I get my drink halfway down. Plus, if you're drinking while you're walking, you don't have to wear your mask because you can't, right? So I'm just saying. So I'm searching. I'm disappointed, and I could have easily went to any of the other like little bagel place. There was a 20-minute line, or I could have gone to Dunkin' Donuts, but there's 17 people in line and only one employee, so it wasn't moving. And so I kept walking, and I'm like, okay, that one's closed. Let me go find, because usually Starbucks is pretty quick.
So this was your ringing endorsement for me to become a coffee drinker, is so that I can walk the length of entire multiple concourses in order to get my coffee fix?
My name is Tony, and I have a drug habit, caffeine.
So I got off the airplane, and then I went to A15, and then I went to A25, and then the next sign, it's like you're trying to get this point across about how there's not enough workers, and all I can hear is this guy has a problem. He's got a real problem. Well, I could have stopped by any of the donut or the other shops, but I really wanted my Starbucks, man.
Yeah, well, I posted this on one of the forums. I was just having fun, man. I had some time between my flights, and I posted this on one of these Facebook forums that I happen to be on for the pilots that work for Legacy Airlines. And man, I didn't go viral, but man, I got many hits going, that Starbucks is always burnt. Don't go there. It's a piece of crap anyway. And they're against the cops. And I'm like, really? I didn't really? Okay. So I'm like, yeah, maybe I should just go to 7-Eleven and start drinking my coffee black and grow a mustache and the silver hair and go for the trifecta and wear the hat.
What is kind of funny. It's I try not to talk about my coworkers because we all there's only a few of us. But there is a guy that my boss kind of laughed at one time. Every time he's got a morning flight, because we all have a company card that goes to the same place, and our boss gets notified when the cards are used. Every single time there's a morning flight, guess where he goes? He goes to Starbucks, and it's the same amount every single time. And we're not really sure what he gets for the $14. I think he said that it was.
Wait, what? That's got to be
Well, I'm sure that it's not just coffee, but
a Trenta caramel frappuccino in the couple breakfast sandwiches
and a croissant sandwich or what? Yeah, I mean, I don't know
microwavable
what Jimmy, but
Jimmy John's or Jimmy Bombs.
I do fly with him, and sure enough, if it's a morning flight, he'll hit up the Starbucks as well. So it's not just an airline thing; it is most pilots.
Yeah, it really is kind of like a routine. It gives me an excuse to have something in my hand. I mean, I don't smoke, I really don't drink, and I have a cup of coffee in my hand, and it pisses off the family sometimes. Like, put that damn coffee cup down. I'm like, well, it helps me go to the bathroom. What can I tell you?
Blanket.
It pretty much
every time in the morning.
It's a social thing. Drink coffee, have breakfast, go and use the lab.
I know I put it down somewhere. I put it down. Where'd it go?